We are incredibly excited today to talk about cloud production. What's new in the cloud? It's a topic near and dear to our hearts because we're in cloud production 7 days a week. This show is produced in the cloud, but as we saw at NAB with the release of things like Ross Carbonite Code and NDI 6, improving what we can do over the networks, things are expanding at a pretty rapid pace. And so we're very excited to have some cloud experts in the room today. We've got Jason, we got Jonas, we got Jeff Keithley here to talk all about it. And Jeff's actually prepared a little bit of an overview for us to talk about audio and video in the cloud, public clouds versus private clouds, and how that all works. So Jeff, take it away.
Oh, no problem at all, guys. Great to be here. Glad we have a little time to get together. So there's definitely been some good developments here in the recent past. I'd say maybe 6 months. It just seemed to really pick up pace in the audio side of the cloud audio mixing scenarios that were out there. There weren't a lot. Those that were there were a little bit lackluster. It was basically just take the audio console, digital console, what have you, and just plan it in the cloud. And they're still kind of thinking that way in some of the manufacturers, but there are also a lot of manufacturers that are really thinking outside the box and thinking more so of how does the cloud infrastructure benefit for this. So let's rewind a little bit though. What is cloud and what is cloud production? CJ, sorry, buddy, but we're not in the cloud here. We're in the cloud with Zoom, but the production part is still a rack of computers co-located in John's place in Detroit, right? So we're kind of hybrid. We're basically a hybrid production here on office hours. Full cloud would be using something like AWS or GCP, AWS, Amazon Web Services, or GCP Global, GCP is Google's cloud production services. And then there's Azure, which a few people use too, and there's also Oracle. And then there's the next step, which is where things are moving quickly, is private cloud. So private cloud basically means they are spinning up servers and a collection of computers virtualizing all these different tools that we're talking about in doing cloud production in a private co-location or several locations. It could be several different data centers. That's where I feel like the real future is, and that's how things are changing quite a bit, because we are now ourselves, we're pushing hard in our local private cloud here at my offices. We're using it extensively to be able to better our capabilities of what we can give to our clients without having to necessarily incur steady cost over the period of time. And that's where public cloud, at first, when you're doing just one-off events or several small events and things like that, public cloud could be very cost-effective and it allows you to scale really fast. But when you start doing a 24/7 broadcast, for instance, or just daily, a 12-hour to 15-hour day, those cloud costs can really add up quickly. And if your clientele don't have that in mind whenever you're giving them those operation costs, it could definitely be a thing that they have to adjust to. If your clientele can stomach it, great. There are others out there though that are used to I can rent a studio for X amount per day, and they have all the same stuff. So why don't I just go to the studio? So those are the things that we have to kind of all depend. We have to really kind of break it down a little bit, and it really depends on the scenario about which is best. When it comes to sports, which I have a big part of experience doing it in the cloud, we're doing those that maybe we're up for it. The system's up for a day, maybe two, if we're doing a 2-hour or 3-hour broadcast. Whenever I was doing tennis, as long as I was doing tennis, which was 12 plus years, those days were 15 to 16-hour days. Cloud did not work for that because we were doing those days times 10 for a tournament, or 7 to 10 days long on a tournament. So the money didn't really make sense for it. What it did make sense for is the one-offs, the basketball games, the football games, the things that are one and done in a day kind of thing. And if you could spin up your cloud infrastructure fast enough, then you could be very profitable with it. But with that, you have to have the right tools. And that's one of the things we've been missing audio tools. So that's where I kind of segue into that. There's been a lot of talk about, and I've really been antsy about getting my hands on it, is the SSL CalRec, because I'm used to using that in the big trucks. The SSLs in a few big OB trucks, the TV trucks, but CalRec's definitely there. They have launched their System T, and System T is their virtualized version of their CalRec DSP engine. So they're running the same DSP code and everything that's on the ground in their dedicated servers. They're running that now in the cloud, or our cloud, or our instances. And so that's where it was a big jump to be able to see big tools like that come in. Next after them is a smaller company called Llama, or Llama, depending on how you say it, LAMA. And these guys are really aggressive and have come out with a great piece of software that is also cloud or private cloud based, virtualized, whatever. And that software allows to do almost the same effect of SSL. The thing that SSL and CalRec have for them is a ton of audio A1s that understand the platform. And that has always been a problem we've had in the cloud, is the tools that we had available to us, so Harrison Mixbus or Waves, they weren't exactly the most common audio mixer that people could just adapt to, that were used to being in the A1 space. With CalRec and SSL, though those are two separate companies under the same master company, I guess you'd call it, holding company, CalRec and SSL have their own feature set, I guess you'd call it, on either side of it. The others is the adaption that we have to do to Llama, or the adaption to the third one that I found is on Hertz. There is going to be a little bit of adaption to them, but the feature set is deep enough in these that and they're thinking cloud. So they're thinking both in the illustration of building the systems, but also in the way they're pricing the systems. And that's the most important thing, because you can't just factor in, I'm buying a $500,000 SSL board, I'm buying a $50,000 Digico or whatever. It's not the same as that. It's an ongoing cost. It's a monthly cost, a daily cost, weekly cost. And the whole point of cloud is scalability. So the ability to take what you're doing in this show, blow it up times 10. Or 100, whatever you need to do. And these new guys that have come along are definitely, they're thinking that route. One of them, on Hertz, has an install in Canal Plus, which is a French broadcaster. It's stout. It's huge. 6 different 512 node, and I'll get to the node part of that with them, but it's 6 different servers running their full broadcast. And there are people out there doing it. So that's where it's finally, starting to show that, yeah, we're not just playing around in the cloud anymore. We're getting really serious about it, especially in the audio side. It's about time. I think that's a bit for now. Well, let's go a little
Jonas,
bit further.
Did you want to throw in some stuff?
I mean, first of all, I wanted to offer a little bit of a different perspective on cloud costs. One of the really interesting things is I have a lot of clients that do actually run a daily show that runs 5 days a week in the cloud still. They pay thousands and thousands and thousands to AWS. But here's the thing. They can do that for half a year, and still, if that client says, oh, you know what? I'm out of here, that show doesn't work, they have no additional cost. If what is really the big thing with the cloud is that you can do big shows that you don't have the CapEx for. Like, that's what we as a company specialize on, is we help companies do these huge shows that normally smaller companies could never do because they don't have the CapEx. But you know what? If you can pass it along as OpEx to your specific client, and CapEx in this kind means investment capital that you can invest into, like hardware, switches, and all that. If you can't do that, we still have an option with the cloud that allows you to make a little less margin on an ongoing basis, because you do have higher costs than if you would buy it. But at the same time, you stay more flexible. And the one day you can do huge events for half a year with 500 servers. But if in the next year you only need 50, You don't have to pay off 450 servers still. So even for ongoing production, there's still a benefit for cloud 24/7. And if you know that you're going to do that for 1 to 3 years, is mostly where it breaks down. But even then, for a lot of my consulting clients, we go through that quite a lot. It's a cycle every 6 to 12 months. When they look at their invoices, I get a call that's like, hey, Jonas, what about building our own cloud? Because for this money, I could buy like 4 Dell servers. So what's really interesting there is what a lot of people forget is we had an issue with an instance in AWS. It would really suck if you need to like replace that server. For us, it's like, oh yeah, sorry, let me completely switch out the hardware by clicking stop and start. And 5 minutes later, I have a completely new hardware stack and don't have to worry about any of that anymore. I also brought a couple of things to show. Right now, the audio stuff is really great. And what I want vendors to look at right now is what are people excited about? It's Llama and on Hertz. Their tech is great, but it's also not crazy new. There's other vendors that had that. You know what's really new? They understand cloud and they understand that we love the cloud for the OpEx and not needing to do CapEx of like 15K or like needing to invest into something and then bring it with you. There are audio solutions that we had before that just didn't make sense. And cloud doesn't make sense if you have huge software license cost that you need to bring CapEx in. Doesn't make sense for most of the people at that point. I'm just going to show.
So essentially, if you're looking to go after larger productions and larger opportunities, but you don't necessarily have the investment to put $500,000 in hardware on your back end, you don't have to be scared of that larger job because you have the scalability. It expands to the job, your costs expand, but so does the revenue that you're getting from the job. So you have a kind of a way to break in, your on-ramp's a little less steep.
Yeah, and it allows and that's what I love about it. Like we allow smaller companies to do, and often there's like these really small companies that do these amazing jobs. They don't overtake themselves. And then this huge client comes to them and is like, you know what? You do our little webinars so great. What about doing our whole 5-track conference? And then that's most of the time when we get the call and it's like, hey, what about taking it into the cloud? Because we don't care. We can spin up 40 Zoom instances. We can spin up however many vMix rooms you need and manage all that. One of the trends that also right now is we see more and more like repeating productions. And with that, we also see more and more tools being built. So what we do right now is we do a lot of retool. Retool is a low to no code solution to manage resources, build interfaces. People that know me this wouldn't look halfly as nice if I had to build the front end for it, because I'm just a back end guy. So this, for example, is a controller we built for all our Zoom rooms. We can select any of the Zoom rooms in our network after we started it, and we can join it. We can mute it, unmute it, do video on, video off. And then we can use an NDI router to route whatever source we need to go into that Zoom meeting. We are starting to treat more and more instances as appliances. It's like it's one job that it's doing. This also helps with our full and redundant workflows where we have cloud production centers in the East and the West Coast. And basically, if the whole West Coast just vanishes, choose a scenario of your liking, it takes us about 2 to 3 seconds to fail everything over. And that is just to the viewer. The recording would be seamless. But with this tool, it's one companion button, and the viewer the spotlight switches and everything is back up again. Then here, this is our instance manager. We often have that issue with cloud is really complex. Like AWS changes where you start instances and where you manage it every second day. So what we built is for our technical staff, we built an instance manager that allows us to select them. And one special thing here is we tag all our instances with the client that we're working for. For accounting and budgeting, it's really great if you know, we made X amount of money, and this is how much we spend in AWS. So we force all our technicians to enter a client tag first, and then they can start the instances. That then triggers a bot in our Discord that tells us that they're up. And then our engineers in charge, our EICs, they work in our MCR interface. This is pulling data off Nimble through, and this is one thing where Retool really shines. It allows you to build these custom interfaces with a lot of data. So here we see all our SRT stats if we had encoders running. So just with one view, you can see, oh, actually that transmission is faulty. Here we see all our multi-views. So as soon as a multi-viewer becomes available in our environment, it creates a low latency WebRTC link here. And if I click Open Multi-view, it opens that up in our backend. It's all behind our SSO, so only our engineers can access it. And in live streams, you see all the details. Right now, we have a transmission system online that has a multi-view and an output. Those are both one of them being encoded as Opus, one of them being encoded as MP4A. This is our recording. The other one is low latency WebRTC. Then we have like small things that allows us to see the NDI. That is where I think cloud is going. And more people are realizing investment money is really tight right now. Free money isn't basically non-existent. And we saw it in the tech industry that industry that was built on having free money and being able to loan money kind of shattered. And this is where cloud is amazing. We don't need to have all this CapEx anymore. A small company with great people can do huge things in the cloud. And that's where I really like to do the cloud. On the step to talk about private and public cloud real quick, we help a lot of clients to transition their TDs from hardware controls and on-site truck experiences. And there's it isn't a step from on-site to remote or cloud. What people really need to understand is we're not talking like cloud and remote almost is the same from an operator experience and an engineering experience, because you have most of the time software or virtualized software and panels that you remote control. Where they are, I honestly don't care. If they're in a data center or a co-location, doesn't really matter to me. But for a TD, the big shift is from a hardware concept to a software and virtualized concept. And that's the bigger shift. If we make the shift from hardware to software, then going to the cloud is easy. Like if you know vMix already, going to the cloud is easy. You all get a multi-view, you have your vMix, everything is like normal. But if you're coming from an ATOM, there isn't an ATOM in the cloud. And that's one of the things that also was announced at NAB is the Carbonite code, which helps people in the ROS ecosystem get into software switches more. And then, of course, it doesn't matter if it runs locally or in the cloud, really doesn't matter. We try to break it down to TDs. Look, we'll get you a multi-view, we'll get you buttons. Most of the time, it's a Stream Deck. You have a multi-view, you have buttons, you're a TD, you'll be great. That's all you need to do. We'll handle the rest as engineering staff. And that really helps with that transition, because a lot of people get hung up on I'm now switching on a software switcher, which that is the biggest hurdle right now, like from hardware to software, which at some point, how different is it really?
Courtney?
Yeah, Jeff, you and Jonas got me all excited about this Llama mix, and I kind of wondered, well, how much is it going to cost? It works in the cloud. It works on Windows. Hey, it works on Windows PC. So I went online to look, and this is what I found. Tell me if this is the wrong Llama. And I look for pricing, and it all says soon. So it looks like they haven't established a pricing level for it yet.
There are some behind-the-scenes pricing that I'm aware of, but it's not publicly released currently right now. So whenever which should happen, I think at the end of May, is what they're looking at. But I've been assured that it's competitive to other offerings that are in the market. It is not
like which level of offerings, consumer priced or professional priced?
It's a professional tool,
$10,000, or it could be $99.95.
Oh,
so that's a big range.
It is reasonable pricing.
It is. Okay.
It is professional software, but what just warms my heart is when they say, oh, yeah, we're thinking about weekly. And it's not saying that they'll get there, but they know that that is what we need. And they're thinking about us people who want to use OPEX capital and not CapEx, right?
So as far as in the cloud, it could be per instance
Yes.
per day.
Yes.
So it could be priced
Exactly.
that way
Yep.
rather than.
And right now, what we're
one time.
fighting for most of the time is per week. And most of them still have an option to buy it or have yearly and monthly pricing. But week is really the medium point where, I mean, Jeff and I, we both probably would like per second as soon as I boot the instance.
Well, I mean, that's what AWS is, right? It's
Yeah.
by the minute, by the second. So why can't we have that in all our software offerings? It probably won't ever get there, except on certain little things, because it's an accounting issue. It's not a technology issue. It's an accounting issue. The accounting firms or the accounting people that are in these companies, they're not set up to do incremental billing like that.
Yeah, and their accounting component has to monitor the usage too, and that's going to become a big part of the software. Is going to have to monitor its usage.
And that's exactly why companies like Llama and OnHertz have this huge ledge right now is the tech is great, but also their accounting and billing works. Like, it is unbelievable how long fights, and I'm sure Jeff has the same discussions in the back, where we're like, hey, your software is great. I want to use it, but I can't guarantee how many engines I want to use over a year. Because in the 1 week, we do a 40-room breakout session. In the other week, we do a 2 redundant system session, and I need to be able to scale up and down quickly. And more, especially the new vendors are realizing, you know what? That makes total sense. And what I also love about that is there's this great sense of we're in this together at that point. Like, vendors who are aligned with your profit is awesome. Because at that point, if you make money, they make money. They make money by making you successful. It's a great, I love that setup. And we try to do it as well, like working with the business model of our clients. Because at that point, you're all in this together. You all try to find solutions. With other companies, I sometimes had issues where it's like, oh yeah, well, you're paid for the year. We'll give you really great support again when you're up for renewal. And with those type of companies, they really are based off your usage. They want you to succeed. They help you. I think it's a good thing, and really showing that like being cloud ready is not only a tech problem, it's also an accounting problem.
And I've looked at on their website, they look like they're going to have a yearly license broken down by the number of channels that you need, 16, 32, 64, 128, or unlimited. And I can only imagine for broadcast how much that's going to cost. So that at least they've decided on how they're going to divvy it up as far as pricing goes. They just haven't established prices for each one of those.
And Jeff, you had a couple other things to show before we get to producer questions?
Yes, I sure did. So I'm sharing my screen right now of one of the options that we were talking about here is OnHertz, just so you can kind of see and get an idea of what it looks like. Currently right now I have it more in a software control mode. You probably heard my audio dip down because my audio today is actually all going through OnHertz. So I'm actually doing the full mix and everything off of that. This is the general idea, and you have multiple banks of what you can see of different inputs and outputs. I have it down right now. It's about a 32 channel, even though I only have 24. You could set how many you want to have visible as far as your faders and everything. It's a very customizable per use. And then this little mix right here, this is my local address, of course, so don't worry about trying to ping it, Jason. This address is actually the module. I can pick it up on any browser anywhere in the facility here. Now then, let's go to the big part of it. And some of you know that I have been around the Sienna processing engine for quite a while, so I immediately picked up on this, and I was like, oh, nodal base, beautiful, beautiful. So on my left side here, you can see the audio in, which is my DVS card, so Dante virtual sound card. So I have it set to 64 channels in and out. And then also I have a couple of NDI feeds coming in and out. Then in the middle is where the love is, and this is every bit of this mixer broken down in signal flow, so you can see everything on the channels from the delay, the advanced gain. As you saw in this looks pretty simple, but if I wanted to drill into it, like in my EQ here, I could go in and adjust my EQ and make it do whatever I wanted to do. Dynamics, gates, compressors, you name it. I have those engaged already. Bus routing for outputs, which buses and which outputs I need to send it to, and then just simple. So it's really configurable to the granular level, which is kind of the important thing here. The designer part comes into play whenever you're starting and building your system. You don't have to have it as complex as this. If you just needed simple audio in, audio out, then you could actually go into the setup before the engine's running. Right now I can't do that, but while the engine's off, I could actually go in and build every little signal flow and just put the pieces I need in there. And then that all counts off of what they're doing as a nodal base, I guess you call it ticker. And so right now, say for instance, you see in the right corner, I'm using 168 nodes out of 256. So I still have plenty of capacity left over that if I wanted to use more, I could add more things to it. But this is on Hertz. Really great people. I'm really enjoying working with them and developing them with them. I have another, also though, as a competitor, which...
Before you move on, I just a question. So if you have these virtual sound cards coming in, so whether it's Matty or Dante or AES,
Yep.
are those happening concurrently with
Yes.
your...
You can use multiple different devices coming in. It doesn't have to be just one.
And what's really great with Aristo is what this engine is called. Calling it a mixer is like this tiny bit. So what Jeff is showing there is called the Flex mixer module. And the Flex mixer module, I don't know if you have the settings up for that. Basically, you can say, I would like a channel, and it should be stereo, and it's an advanced channel, and then they build out EQs and everything. Or you say it's a simple channel. But what's really, really great is then you don't need to do the basics. But if at any point you're like, you know what, actually that doesn't work for me anymore, you can build all of it by yourself. You can build ducking, and a lot of you who were there in the really early times when we were playing around in another facility is remember the BSS 806, and I've been searching for something like that in the cloud forever, and it finally feels like I found it. And you should have seen my face when they said, oh yeah, and sure, you can just pop it out here and pop it into an iframe, because everything you see there can work in an iframe. Oh, you need your producer to be able to fade up and down their own volume? Sure, here's an iframe link. You want to control what NDI feeds work? Sure. They have a 702110 mode that is really, really interesting for those that are into that. They have the multi-device input mode that allow you to get inputs. But then, so here's the really cool thing. We talked about the flexibility. You can get the engine. Let's say you want to invest something because you really love this piece of software. You invest in a huge engine. You can add more nodes if you need to. And then, so like they allow you to scale up your engine. And then you're like, oh, shoot, I need more NDI inputs. Oh yeah, they can license it weekly. The same for SIP connections. This is one of the really neat things. They have a SIP dialer built in. So you can just do SIP connections with it to NDI, into your mixer. You can rent them by the week.
So you're really not laying a lot of concrete in terms of, oh, I bought too small of a mixer, now I can't go attack this.
You can grow to whatever you need.
And Jeff, you had one more thing to show us before we get to questions.
I would say that Artisto's probably at the forefront of everything out there that we're doing. But the guys at Llama really do have a good offering, and this is it. It is more of a standalone. It's not quite as modular, though it has a lot of modularity in it. So, like if I didn't want to see certain things, now you'll see some audio bouncing on this machine here. So I just took out 4 faders that say I didn't need. This audio right now is, except for channel 1. Channel 1 actually is this guy right here. This is my mic going back into it. You'll see the other audio over there. I'm actually getting the audio and ingesting the audio from a studio in Charleston. It's coming across. Now we're not using Dante Connect yet, but that is something we're definitely moving towards. We're using Unity Connect. We have 64 channels of Dante audio coming across the internet, and we're mixing it on site here with this mixer. And
Boy,
that is
it
because
is
it's
pretty though.
virtualized.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it has a lot of abilities to be able to grow. The further up you want to go and deeper you want to go into it. Like, for instance, we were talking about doing, let's see, currently right now. So if I wanted to change anything, you just pick it and grab it and do whatever you want. The VST strips, if you wanted to grab in and put in VSTs, these were all the different pieces of the audio mixer are, so I don't have to see it all at once. If I just need to talk to their tilt EQ or their expander, compressor, equalizer, you name it, it's all there. With all the needs that you have to be able to touch it, you can grab it. So it's a little bit different way of working than, say, the on Hertz is, but equally powerful, I believe, and it has the same capabilities of being an unlimited type of build too. That's really powerful. It really is.
Sorry, does it do auto mix, or is that a separate plugin?
Both of these offerings both have auto mix built in
And
as an option.
Llama doesn't only have Llama Mix. Sorry, Jeff, for interrupting you. Llama also has auto mix that is being used right now a lot for commentating and all that. So it is used for a lot of, like, you take the world feed and then you have your commentators on top. And then, I don't know, Jeff, do you have Llama Connect on there as well?
I do not have it available.
So Llama Connect also allows you, so this is the mixer that is comparable to what we had in Aristo, but they also have Connect that kind of similar to Aristo of, like, I need this signal going there and NDI to Dante and back and forth. So they also have options for that. It's really cool to have those two different options there. And what blows me away is what Jeff showed with the VST plugins. Just add a VST plugin and they expose the knobs from the VST plugin. Like, that is really, really cool. It's not like, oh, I need to open up 50 million VST ugly interfaces. No, they expose those knobs to you in this interface in one singular integration. It is awesome.
A little masterclass in progressive disclosure. This is really incredible stuff. Thank you both so much for sharing. We do have some questions stacking up, so we're going to dive in. Bill, could you take it away?
Absolutely. John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania asks, could somebody explain for us newbies how to automate loading software for a software image on an AWS instance or instances?
Go ahead, Jonas.
So basically, you can start with any of the images. You can start with Windows, and then you need to upload all the software. What we do is we build our own CloudFormation template. And at that point, you just go in there, you say, hey, I want to create a new stack. I want to add a specific, let me just pull it up real quick. You can just say, what name is it? What instance? What VPC? What key name? What usage it is? And then it installs everything for you. We're around 15 minutes right now to get a full production-ready instance without touching it. If you want to learn it yourself, you can also head over to officehours.global/ I think focus -on-AWS. Similar to that, where Tucker went through a whole setup session 2 years ago. We probably should repeat that at some point, but we haven't built our instances manually in a whole while. And I believe as soon as you have a certain scale, you shouldn't, just because there's these tiny things that you'll keep missing. And it's really hard if you have 100 instances. And on some of them, you miss the detail, on some you don't. So we deploy all our instances with it. We use Instance Manager to update the software. That's what I would use. And we are renting and selling those and deploying instances. But you can also use the Parsec cloud preparation script. It's really interesting if you want to look into that. That is a free alternative. Otherwise, I would just say start with the nice TCV GPU intensive and go from there.
Jeff?
Yeah, I've progressed from the old school way, I guess you would call it now, is building them manually. And it got to a point of exactly what Jonas was saying is you get to a point where it's like, okay, I need to do just 5. All right, no big deal. I'll create a machine, like we said, like Jonas said, we'll start with a nice DCV because it gives you a multi option of being able to get to the desktop and control the desktop. And then from that point, it'll just build off of those. You create an AMI, a copy of that, an image of that, and then you make more and more and more. Well, it starts getting pretty tricky, and you have to know the back end of how to make things work smoother. Whenever you start using a copy of a copy of a copy, you get some issues. So the administration and what Jonas is talking about, being able to do it off of scripts, it very, very quickly becomes evident when you start talking about more than just a few machines. So I would dive deep into that and try to learn it because that is a great tool to have in your back pocket.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Andy Kokendorfer in Viera, Florida. And Andy wonders, did anyone look at the Vizrt Vectar while at NAB? Thoughts on the reliability of this system? And he's got a link to it.
Jonas?
So actually, we have a little coverage piece of that. And I'll let Jeff handle most of that because he has more experience with Vizrt Vectar. I just have to say, I find it the weirdest thing that they call it a TriCaster vector. Doesn't really have anything to do with a TriCaster, and like I would take all that presumptions that you have with TriCasters and move it away and give Vector a chance. It's a really cool piece of software, and I wouldn't worry about the reliability in the cloud, especially if you are on sanctioned systems.
Jeff?
It is a TriCaster. It's the same code. But the difference is that what the cloud gives us is we have certain things that we cannot do in the cloud. Say, for instance, you should not, I'm going to say should not necessarily you cannot, but should not do in the cloud. There's a certain things you don't run into, like bandwidth restrictions. You don't have to worry about how many NDI feeds you have floating around in your VPC in the cloud, because it's nearly almost irrelevant because you have so much bandwidth available to you. I mean, the normal machine that we use to do Vizrt Vectar is 25 gigabits on the NIC. That is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of possible NDI feeds. So it's not so much that that's the issue that people have found on the ground, maybe with using NDI and maybe reliability with some of the devices that were NDI quote compliant. That's one of the things that we have to worry about on the ground, but in the cloud, it's just not a thing. I've been using Vizrt Vectar since before it was even Vizrt Vectar. I was using the virtualized version of VMC, which is a predecessor to the TriCaster DC1, DC2. It's super reliable for us. It works for us. Your mileage will always vary in your own, and is it worth it? I don't know. You'll have to make that call. If you want the most powerful piece of software to do audio video mixing out there right now, it's Vizrt Vectar, hands down.
And I know there's a lot of us within the Office Hours group here that are looking pretty closely at Vizrt Vectar, and we've been trying to figure out where we can put it in for a second hour. So, Andy, be on the lookout for that. We're going to talk about that a lot more. Next question.
David Brady in New York City is up next. At what point does it make sense to invest in a turnkey solution versus rolling your own production pipeline in the cloud? Think Grass Valley AMPP software as a service solution, and he's got a link there to a Grass Valley subsite.
Jonas.
Well, Grass Valley AMP really is a weird outlier there that we are talking mostly about reasonable priced cloud. There's also crazy cloud, what I call it. It's CDI and uncompressed to then down compress it to 6 Mbits and Grass Valley AMP, where you need G5 metal instances. I would say get together with an integration partner like Jeff or myself or similar and build your own solution. It will allow you to fit much better into your costs, into your business infrastructure, into your existing system. We are more and more rolling more like turnkey system for our clients that are like I showed you, instance managers and stuff like that. but I have yet to see a SaaS that allows you to still have the same scalability. And Grass Valley AMP, I just don't get warm with that solution. It's a little weird to me.
Jeff?
I agree with Jonas. there's AMP, and then there's the rest of us almost, because while it's quote an ecosystem of sorts, there's a lot of things still that are missing in the AMP infrastructure or ecosystem and the biggest part is it just doesn't make sense for the cost effectiveness of the events and the clients that we serve. But you could come very close to any of the functionality that they happen to have. Building your own system with either Jonas or I that we would allow just pretty much bring everything to the table that you need and not anything else that you don't need. And you won't have the cloud budget to spend that AMP requires, unfortunately.
Next question.
Cherry Cheetah in Dallas wonders, what's the best way to sync multiple SRT feeds from mobile phones in the cloud for low-cost sporting events? Think parents streaming their kids' soccer games.
Jonas?
I would say Larix Broadcaster, just because you can actually insert NTP time syncs there, and then you shoot it up to Nimble, where you can take the SES messages embedded in the TS feeds and sync it up that way. Otherwise, use as low latency as possible and hope that it's close enough. Spotting events kind of is like the one thing where you really want accurate sync, because you don't want to see that ball almost hit the goal twice. Like, that's one of the things where sync really gets important. That's what I would use.
The double cutting's a feature, not a bug. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, Shirak, you probably have maybe heard me mention this once or twice, but Sienna Processing Engine allows you to do sync across multiple NDI feeds. And they have a module called Syncify, which allows you to time out, and you can either visually or by the numbers, either way, slip and slide multiple feeds together to be able to bring them back into sync. So that's the tool I would use.
Next question.
Eduardo Augustine in Panama. I currently go to every venue to stream and travel with all my gear. Being a small production team, should I consider cloud production, REMI in this case, or is it too soon? And thoughts and comments on starting on cloud.
Jonas.
It is never too soon. I would say think about your simple events. Think about what really is a pain on site. One of the first starting stones is having a master controller in the cloud where you send your SRT feed to it and then stream RTMP from there to, let's say, YouTube. One really great use case for that is we'll put your countdown there. We'll put something else so you can put it yourself there. And then you can fiddle around with your ATEM or whatever you have on site until you need to go live. Because otherwise you run into this issue where let's say you have a 30-minute countdown timer. Let's be a little extreme there. And you can't touch your equipment for 30 minutes and you can't cut around and the client wants to see something and you can't do it because you're already live, but people wanted to go live early. That's the smallest stepstone. And then you can go on from there. Make it cloud augmented where you send a feed up and add stuff to it. Use it for failover, and then at some point, we have small racks that we ship out. You plug the cameras in and you take it from there. Yeah, I totally think it's up. We are not a huge company and we do REMI and cloud and it's great. It allows you to scale much more.
I
Jeff?
would agree completely. It's never too early. There's plenty of capabilities out there. You can add a lot more to your outgoing product and give your clients a lot more production value by embracing some of this technology. I have a client, an old friend of mine, that has been doing virtual meetings. He's doing virtual meetings, but a hybrid's a little bit. But his big money for the longest time before the pandemic was doing corporate meetings in breakout rooms. And he was doing 10, 15, 20 breakout rooms and all this gear moving out there. What is he doing now? One PTZ camera, an ingest encoder that's sitting there sending up a couple streams of SRT And then each one of those rooms go to the cloud and they get a full mix, a stream, a backup recording, all the same stuff that he was having to carry all this gear out with. Now it's down to just a couple pieces. So for me, absolutely, go for it. And if you need help, we're here to help you.
Next question.
Samuel Nordvik in Norway, what's your preferred AMI for running vMix in the cloud?
Go ahead, Jonas.
Nice CCV GPU intensive on a G4DN or G5ADN. No, DN. ADN would be with AMD graphics. I would use it for like utility instances, but right now we have a good enough coverage of G4DN that is there. And the really cool thing with it is it's the cheapest and easiest and no fuss way to get multiple screens. You get nice DCV, which is a really good remote control solution for free with it on AWS. That's I almost know no other solution for Windows systems. I don't know anybody else building it on top of something else.
Next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. I only use cloud-based software to store and transfer files. I've never used cloud editing services. What are some good tools for editing in the cloud?
Go ahead, Jonas.
And since that question was asked so early, I actually was able to set up a little demo. Let me cut to it. So DaVinci Resolve has this really, really cool feature. Because one of the issues when you do cloud editing is you can just use AWS and EC2. You put up Resolve on there and you're golden. So here we go. This is one of our production instances in Splashtop. I can go in here. I download a little bit of footage. So if I go here, I can, I forgot to unzip it. So we have this footage. But now you're like, I really need to see that image clearly and like low latency, and you could use something like nice CCV or Parsec, but Resolve actually, and this is for the studio version, has a really, really great feature. So if you have an iPad, like I do, see, I can make my image a little larger. Like I do here, you have a remote viewer app, and that is for free, included with Resolve. You log in with a code, then it logs you in, and now I have my program view. So now if I move around here, I'll play it, you'll see it's a really high quality view of what happens in the cloud. Let me get here real quick so you see it larger. And that's really a fantastic solution. They also have a Windows and a Mac OS client. And even if you're working with a director, you can send him a code, like there's a little session code that you need to use, and then he can join that session. They have a feature that's like a waiting room where people can join you. And this way you can share really high quality. This is an H.265 feed, and it is at 444 10-bit. So like really pulling out all the quality that you can on an iPad. And this is actually a server in the US. So yeah, I can really look at everything like sync and all that. Resolve really is great for that. We also use Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro is especially interesting if you want to use NDI and do like live editing of that. AWS has a lot of great tutorials for post. Live, they're catching up to live, but for post, they have a lot of great tools. Check out Nimble Studio. Nimble Studio is their solution for that. That helps you set up a lot and like takes out all the complexity. They have a file manager for that. They have Deadline Cloud, which allows you to do rendering across multiple servers. And yeah, then Resolve really is great, runs great in the cloud. Sadly, we don't have an AMI from it anymore, but just use a nice CSV instance, put Resolve on it, and go have at it.
Jeff?
For us, it was at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a few clients that needed to have this capability. And so it was bringing in and doing editing with Adobe Premiere and using the growing file feature that is available out of the NDI recordings. And so we were going into our cloud infrastructure using Sienna, and then we were pushing all that over to S3 and ephemeral drives both. And then those files were easily edited from Adobe. And so if you're in that ecosystem, it does work. It just takes a little bit to get set up.
Next question.
Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, BC. What does everyone think of the Bitfocus Companion cloud service?
Jonas?
It's great that they're going that way. I don't think it's ready for production yet, and they actually tell you you're not allowed to use it in production yet. If you ever need to remote control Companion, just use Cloudflare tunnels and Companion satellite or traditional VPN. It works really well. We do it every single day.
Next question.
Next one comes from Cherry Chica again in Dallas. I have been playing with a bit with the SpaceCommz with COMMZ beta. What are some new features coming up, and when will this be available for all?
Well, Mr. SpaceCommz, Jonas?
There we go. So I actually, we just had a big push today where we updated a bunch of the things. Just want to highlight, we have more than 6 PLs, right? We're not limited to 6 PLs. We don't actually care how many PLs you have because we're matrixless. We do the mixing on device. So the click-to-speak latency with Unity, you know the problem of like you talk and then you need to wait for a second till the talk is there. We don't have that. You now have talks, you have solo talks, all that, speaker options, mic options. If you head over to SpaceCommz.io, you can sign up for the beta right now. We give you 5 users for free during the beta to play around and test with. The only thing that right now we're still missing to be production ready is billing, which I'm sure everybody's really sad about that we can't bill you yet. And the other thing that we are working on is a Stream Deck and Companion integration, so you can have those buttons. But it works great on an iPad. It works great in most browsers. Has cloud infrastructure, so we should be close to 100 milliseconds to every person on the Earth. And yeah, that's SpaceCommz.
Jeff?
Since I knew the developer of this here software, I made a request. I said, it would sure be great if we could hit a button that would just solo a certain channel that I could just talk on it. They updated it, and it was there. That was 2 weeks ago, if most. I think it was a week ago that I put that request in. That I love. And so thanks to Jonas and John both for being receptive to the concept and working on this. It is absolutely, positively something we have needed, not just in the cloud space, but in production space in general.
Courtney?
Yeah, and I have a question. Does it have a production feed, which is a separate audio feed of like a production audio that you could put into the left ear and put comms in the right ear so that you could monitor off of your phone and still have production audio feed as well as comms?
You can just have a PLS production feed. We're working on panning and all that later. But right now we don't have the ingest yet. So we actually use some noise gating and all that to make sure that comms sound good, and I don't have to deal with open speakers and all that on comms. So we are still working on adding a special mode that allows you to insert your feed. But yes, that is high on the priority list for us so you are able to actually get your program audio and then pan it and all that.
Next
It would
question.
be great if we had that. So if we had like an NDI input or a WebRTC
really
input
neat.
output or a SIP input output. I know I keep making his list longer and longer.
Next question.
Next question comes from Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington. How do you find skilled operators worldwide to run your remote productions? And is that the big benefit of cloud?
Jonas?
The big benefit is that we have awesome operators working from home that are comfortable. Small, tiny story. There's nothing more that I love when I see a parent being able to walk up like in a break when we give them a lunch break or whatever, walk up and suddenly come back and say, yeah, I just played an hour outside with my son, or I had dinner with the family, and then they come back and earn their living. Like, I mean, we talk about the tech a lot, but like I also love what it does to us as humans, that you are able to stay home, not be on the road. The global aspect allows us to not have terrible working hours, except for we're Europeans sometimes when we're working US shifts. But office hours has been a big source of skilled operators, and then it's it's always looking for people. And but yeah, I just love the human effect of being home, and people are more relaxed, and I get like way more skilled operators if I can tell them, oh yeah, you don't need to travel to Germany to do that event. Yeah, just log in here with the setup that you already have at home. You get awesome TDs to cut your shows.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I would agree that it really kind of comes down to the type of operators that we're looking for. Right now, as I alluded to earlier in the program, audio operators are probably dragging their feet. They're dragging their feet, like wallowing on the ground like a big seal, because they just don't want to embrace audio in the cloud. It is probably the last great effort that we're pushing people to be able to do. I purposely set this up and wanted to show you is like there is a way that you absolutely can mix on the ground. Here it is, my feed right now, maybe. This is my audio. This is my mixer that I'm controlling, the software-based mixer with real faders. I've got mute buttons. I've got every of those pieces, all the pieces that I normally would have. I've got them in front of me, and I can layer it out as big as I want. If I wanted a bigger mixer interface over there in the studio right now, we're using a QL1 to drive something completely remotely. So the audio guys are probably the last ones to come because they're used to that typical face-to-face or that typical fader, that touch it, feel it kind of thing. But once we get them aboard, I think we're going to be in a really great place. But we're as Jonas said, we're always looking for people interested. I would much prefer to hire somebody interested in this.
And let's for the next question, I'm actually going to smush two of them together because it seems like SpaceCommz has generated some interest. So, Bill, I'm just going to take this one.
Go for it.
So, Rion Smith from Trinidad and Tobago in the West Indies says, I want to build a more cost-effective comms platform versus Unity. I can resell to small group events. Would these cloud audio apps work? And then Douglas had, what advantages does SpaceCommz have versus Unity? So, Jonas, you could touch on both of those because we're a little pressed for time.
So, big advantage is you don't need to host anything. Yes, there's also Unity Cloud, but I try to understand the licensing model, and it's a little complex. We try to bring some fresh air into the thing. We care about all these remote production workflows and all that. That is a big advantage. 850 plus tax per user. You can buy as many users as you want. That is the big advantage. We're per user pricing. You can change it per month. And it's all in browser, so you don't need to download something. Your producers who are on corporate systems don't need to download anything, don't need to open any ports, just open it, go to the website, and that's it.
Jeff?
I would say it's a lot harder, and as Jonas would probably attest to this, it's a lot harder to build a comm solution than you think it is. When you start adding in, I need multiple PLs, I need multiple users, it really is more so of, are they more familiar with just a single party line? I've got some users that have been on Unity and they didn't even know they had other channels. So there's really kind of depends on the user base, but for our user base, Jonas's solution with SpaceCommz it's going to be really phenomenal to be able to put into production.
Next question.
Next one comes from James Wilson in Palo Alto, California. What are your workflows for getting sources from show site into the cloud?
Jeff?
For us, we use a lot of different ones. We use LiveView. We actually use a lot of LiveView in our sports side of things, and we can do a single channel going up, or we can do multiple channels with our OU800, up to 4 channels going there, and then we decode those in the cloud. We use SRT. SRT is probably the more prevalent that most people are using to do that. We're using NDI Bridge in some instances, and then we've been using Sienna Cloud, which used to be called NDI Cloud, which is a server-to-server based upload, and it's a little different. It's very similar to NDI Bridge, but it's a little different in that it uses a mezzanine codec to be able to move video back and forth. It'll do up to 4K. The big difference in it is it's a two-way protocol, where SRT is really a one-way and then you have to point it back the other way. The NDI Cloud and Sienna Cloud is really more about I could have 8 feeds going up and 2 coming down for confidence monitors, and it's all converted from NDI that's on the 2 different sites. So there is some hardware that's involved there, but it's hardware on a Ubuntu server. That's how we're doing our feeds back and forth between the studio right now, and it's really, really effective. And it's not as costly as it used to be. It's under 2,000 US now per node, and then you could have a network of those nodes together. But it was built specifically for doing this contribution thing. So that's kind of the multiple ways we use different things. It just depends on the instance and who we're feeding, and where we're trying, and what type of production we're trying to interface with.
Apologies to the back end. We're going slightly over today. Alert the affiliates. But we need to, but let's just lightning round get these last couple questions through, because there's a ton of interest in this topic. Next question.
Paul Wallace, Hot Springs, Arkansas. Compare and contrast AWS Elemental's media services, Telestream, Wirecast, Gear, and vMix Cloud.
It exists all in the cloud. Elemental media services are hosted software or infrastructure as a service. They have everything from transcode, packaging, switching, Telestream, Wirecast Gear. I really don't use it that much. vMix Cloud is what we use a lot, and you need to build it yourself, or you hire someone like me or Jeff to make it easy for you and deal with it for you.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael, how latent is the SSL CalRack mixing solution when the mixing engine is in the cloud and the A1's control surface is local?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Milliseconds. It's really hard to tell. It's hard to tell there's any difference at all. It's just like I'm using a local device.
That's amazing. Next question.
Stefan Fischer, Würzburg, Germany. What is the most cost-effective and GDPR-compliant way to back up media data in the cloud?
Jonas, you're a GDPR kind of folk.
I mean, this question, let me start the third hour. No, I would look into Jonas, Hetzner, or OVH. And what's important is, if you want to be fully compliant, that you use companies that don't have an office in the US that would entitle them to being required to share information with the Cloud Act. GDPR is complex and it changes every 3 seconds. So I would definitely check into that and what your requirements are. But Jonas has a great storage solution. Hetzner has a great storage solution. That's what I would look for. I would use a F3 compliant storage. So you can switch. So whenever the regulators change it again, it is easy to flip out a storage solution.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael has our last one. I like the idea of using standard VST plugins in the Llama Mix engine. What have your experiences been with installing commercial VSTs on a cloud instance? I know many VST makers only give you a 1 to 2 authorization system.
Jonas?
Most of them work pretty well. Except for a Waves system. That one didn't really allow you to use your own plugins, which is really weird because they sell you plugins. Apart from that, it works generally well. Most systems are okay with it. Sometimes you have to unlicense it and relicense it. And here's the quick tip for today. Create yourself a 1 gig drive that is called W drive and attach that whenever you want to do Waves licensing. Suddenly it works. Before that, it didn't work.
Thank you so much. This panel has been one of the most interesting days that I've gotten to host. It's because I feel like I'm learning so much, and I love being in a room where I am the least informed person on what we're talking about, because I just leave so enriched. And it's a huge thank you to Jeff and Jonas. Us other panelists are kind of sitting here going just wow the whole time. We're just like wow, but. Really, really great stuff and tons of interesting. We probably need a second hour on mechanical sliders, a second hour on SpaceCommz, and a second hour on Vizrt. I mean, we've chalked up quite the docket today. Thank you also to the folks, the producers asking questions out there. It'd be a much shorter show without your questions, although we could try to keep talking. I'm sure we could do our best. But the interest in this topic is what made the conversation so lively and so exciting. Also, thank you to our amazing back-end crew. Yeah, as I'm still here talking and you're saying, hey, it's time. Thank you for waking up every day, making us look and sound good. The show's impossible without all of us. One more note for us, folks who've been in the community a while know about the passing of Dennis Champion Walker, who contributed amazingly to this community. Some of the positions that we have and the way that we do things today are a direct result of the contributions. And just wanted to let everyone know that there will be a rebroadcast of his memorial service in after hours. That's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So just about an hour from now. Look out for that. And we'll just have a quick moment of silence as we remember Dennis. For its log traversal today, 75,000 miles, 120,000 kilometers. That's 591 million bananas for scale. We'll see you in after hours. Thanks, everyone. We had one question go from Pennsylvania to California to Panama to Germany to Texas back to Pennsylvania.
That mileage count was astounding.
That was 25,000 kilometers without blinking.
Those who think that the cloud isn't green, remember we could be flying right now.
Oh, man, the jet fuel alone.
Jeff, Jonas, thank you so much. Seriously, that was great.
Enjoyed it. It's been a long time coming. I think we need to do it more often.
Hey, Jonas, I got to ask, though, Jonas or Jonas, because Keithley's infecting my thinking here, and I don't know I don't know what to call you anymore when I read your name.
So
we've been misnaming you this whole time.
So I really don't care.
I know you don't.
In German, it's Jonas, and a lot of people like to do that as like I'm trying to be nice. But if I say Jonas, it's really hard for me to not suddenly start speaking German. And like especially in the earlier days, it was really, really hard to say